Welcome to Toffee TV. This is the final word. Manchester City 1, Everton 1. We've got Alan Myers with us, the legend that Alan Myers. You all know who he is. We don't need to give big introductions.
Give a 5-minute warning, just cover them up. 5-minute warning after 5 minutes.
There isn't a sheep big enough to cover me up, guys.
You've got the couch to yourself, don't worry about
chill.
it.
Coleman face on you.
Where is it gone? Yeah, we've got to put the Tim Howard. We've got a Tim Howard match. We've got to put it on him. We can do that for the other whatever, yeah. Thinking on our feet here. Brilliant draw, the Etihad. Baz, were you impressed by that one?
Made up. Impressed. Wasn't impressed in the first half, I'll be honest, but I thought we got better as it went on. Was impressed with the goalkeeper. Despite some outlets saying he was a bit dodgy earlier in the week, I've had to backtrack. I'm not naming any names, but
you know me, Baz. As soon as you say no names, I will name no names.
The doubt's creeping in after a Europe, anyway, he more than proved himself at the Etihad at the weekend, but no, fantastic point and one more than I thought we were going to get, to be honest.
Al, impressed by this one?
Yeah, I was a bit, when we went 1-0 up, I actually thought a draw was a bad result in the end, because you think you've got in the lead, you've done, I did think, and I actually tweeted it, that I thought once Aguero come on, we were going to be struggling a little bit because the defence hadn't been as good as maybe we would have liked it to be. But then we seemed to contain him. There didn't seem to be a big problem. The goal was disappointing that we conceded. That if you see the guy in the lead, he just walks away from two of our players and gets the free header. And so. I don't know. I mean, that goal from Lukaku was good enough to win any game, I thought. And I wouldn't have been disappointed, or I wouldn't have been upset if we'd have won 1-0. That's for sure. Definitely wouldn't have been upset.
Definitely wouldn't have been upset. Yeah, well, I mean, the starting lineup, obviously Oviedo came in stayed in the team, which was disappointing. No Baines. Ronald Koeman had said that Baines was fit, so that's a worry on itself. You start to think now, was that reoccurred?
Well, there was pitches on Friday and he was training, they were all huddled around, he was training Baines. So
see that, but that's the worry, isn't it? That's the worry.
I'm just hoping he's thought Sterling can catch chickens, so let's just give him another week to make sure
Oviedo can't catch chickens, that's for sure.
He was quick at once. He had Oviedo
to be fair,
had an absolute nightmare opening 20 minutes. Sané had him every which way but loose, didn't he? Give him the out.
He did. Right turn, Clyde. The references are so current, aren't they? They're so current. Everyone will know that. Everyone will know that. Deulofeu was
that's what it is.
Deulofeu starting as well for Ross.
Yeah.
We had been talking about Ross last few weeks. All about we understood why he was kept in the side, but I can understand now why he's took him out the side for a game like this.
It's difficult, isn't it, with a young player as well? For a manager to look at young players, and you've seen through the years the different ways different managers treat young kids. Some of them have no problems whatsoever, and what I liked over the last few weeks is that the manager now wants to say what he thinks is wrong with Ross Barkley when it is wrong, and I think that some managers are always a little bit reluctant to say too much about that, but I think Ronald Koeman doesn't care whether or not I think he doesn't care what he says to anybody.
No.
That's the impression
Why
I
should
get.
he?
Exactly, he's the manager, and the bottom line is a manager gets a lot of stick if it goes wrong, so he should get the credit when I think he does it right, and I think he's got this one bang on. It's a difficult one with Ross, because I think he's a great player and I think he's got so much to give still, but all players go through times where they're not playing so well, and I think it's almost a bit of respect to Ross Barkley that the fans are getting on his case so much because they expect so much, and I think that's half the problem with him. He will be highlighted more than most players. If that was happening to one of the other sort of lesser high profile players, no one would really be saying too much, but they expect so much from Ross and want so much from him that I think he struggles a little bit with that sort of criticism most weeks.
Yeah, that's you know more than us, but he just seems fragile, and maybe it is right this is the right time now to just leave him out. But to be honest, it was more as well. It was just as much tactical for leaving him out, I thought, than anything else, Baz, because the way we set up, we went in there very defensive. Or look to be defensive. We played that flat three, which have been talking about the last few weeks, and it was about playing on the counter attack. And obviously Jerry, if you want to talk about catching chickens, Jerry can catch them. I mean, when he gets the chicken, I'm not quite sure he knows what to do with the chicken, but he
Did you have to mention chickens when I'm on? But go on.
I don't know where to go with that. But you can understand why he played Jerry, just for that out and out pace of playing on the counter attack.
Definitely. I mean, Jerry's in, and I've always said that he's a 1 or a 9, isn't he? He's not a 6 or a 7, and I think that's his problem. You don't know when he pulled the shirt on.
When he's on fire, he's everything you ever want from a winger, isn't he? He's everything you ever want. But when he doesn't, there are games where I feel he just goes missing, and he's not the player that makes a dent into the game, But when he does, I've seen him a few times, when I was there, 3 years ago, and when he starts to mess around with the defenders, the fullbacks, it's just brilliant, and you think that's what you want. But there are times when he frustrates you. There's no two ways about that.
I think he was going with Balassi, and then because he thought we'll suck them in and hit them on the break. But I thought City played a little bit differently. I thought they were brilliant really in that opening 20 minutes. But again, it's the measure of Ronald Koeman. We were kind of 20 minutes in, struggling. We couldn't get out of our box. We were camped, and he just made that little tactical change. He pulled Balassi central and sat him in front, made a diamond. Jerry kind of come and tried to get closer to Rom, and then we just moved back 10 yards and became more compact. We still, to be honest with you, all it done was helped us defend a bit better, because we still didn't. I think we got a free kick which Rom hit over the bar, and I think that was probably our only attempt in that first half. It was one where you needed your defenders to defend well, and to be fair, they did.
Yeah, it was a tough first half, but
they're brilliant though. Let's not.
Yeah,
they are brilliant.
Attacking wise, they are. I think they're suspect at the back.
Yeah.
And I think what you saw with Rom when he took them on, when you run at City's defence, they panic. They do. I've seen it in just recently in more than ever. But I've seen it a few times with City's defence. I think they do. I know they've added John Stones now, and I don't know how that changes things. But I've just seen at times the vulnerability of their defence, and I think.
But they play such a high line as well,
yeah.
don't they? Because there is that Barcelona style of everyone's on the attack, and you look how many times Barcelona have been saved by like Piqué and Mascherano in the last couple of seasons. They play such a high line because it is all about
and
attacking.
That suits Rom. Plays like Lukaku all day long.
Well, I
need that space.
But obviously that's what played into Koeman's thinking as well, thinking if we can just catch them a couple of times, we can get round the back of them. But going back to what you're saying about Jerry, it's so disappointing for me, because this time last year, that partnership with Delafeu and Rom was absolutely flying. They were scoring goals every week. The flat cross, and Rom was at the end of it. And I don't know how he does it, but he's going to have to get that back. And whether this is something we've been talking about the last few weeks, Al, it's down to Delafeu, because if he's not on board with Ronald Koeman, then he's going to be out. Yeah. And it goes back to what we've been saying about Morales as well. Morales was in the team and wasn't contributing a lot, but you could obviously see he was pressing. He was doing what Koeman wants him to do. If Jerry adapts that attitude, he could get a good run in the side and then build that momentum and get that confidence. But he's got to get that other side right first, the pressing, the defending. I know that's maybe not his natural game, but if he doesn't get it right, he's going to end up playing for someone like Celta Vigo or someone like that in Spanish league, have a decent little career where he does nice things now and again, but he's never really going to have it.
You're right.
Top career.
Last season, when he was getting to the line and he was putting those balls across the front of the goal line, they were pretty much a goal every time, wasn't it? And it was so exciting, and it's so difficult to defend against. But there is other parts of his game, as you say, which he's got to get better at.
It's his attitude for me. Baz. I mean, we've said it loads of time, haven't we? Even when he went off, which was his old demeanour when he got subbed off was like.
I don't mind players being. He should be annoyed. I was terrible.
Had he done enough? But had he done enough?
No, but it doesn't matter whether you've done enough. If you looking over, and you'd always, every player does it. You know when you played yourself, when you see that movement on the line, you're looking over, thinking, "Nope, it's not me." Because when you're in a game, but it was never me. I was right. When you're in a game, you can't always get the feel of how you're playing. You might think you're doing some things okay, laid a couple of balls off, you might have thought, I'm doing all right. And just before he come off, he had his best moment in the game, and he skipped inside and hit it, and Bravo pushed it over.
But the way they were attacking, I think it's difficult for players like that. They've got to wait for their moment, you know, in a game like that. You know, they can't. You know, they're wanting that, and I think it's a little bit soul destroying for people like him when they see the opposition just constantly attacking all the time. And I think that's, you know, it's being switched on. You talked about, you know, it's being switched on all the time, waiting for that moment when you get that break, you know.
That's exactly what I mean. To be honest, the first 45 minutes I thought Lukaku was terrible. I thought the second half he was excellent. He held the ball, whatever was said to him at half time. He started getting hold of the ball, he was knocking players around, he looked like he was hungry, and then they didn't fancy it then. Hence why they stood off him for the run. Whereas
there's always a risk of going to the Etihad, you know, with that mentality. And I don't get it, I don't get this, you know. I think you start at the first minute of any game with the chance. I don't care where you go, who you're playing. You know, the bottom line is you've got as much chance as anybody else.
11v11.
Listen, if they play well, we know the quality they've got, you know, is probably better than us at the moment, you know. But if you believe, and you saw the belief, as you just say, especially with Lukaku, when you start turning and running at teams like that, you know, he's world class.
Yeah, that's his forte, isn't it?
Before we get into that, I mean, obviously the major incident of the first half was the penalty. It just annoyed me how bad defensively that was, because we had defended pretty well. You know, Ashley Williams, Jagielka, the whole unit defended really well. The three in front of him did alright, but just the goal was just so stupid. It annoys when you see things like it's bouncing off Coleman's leg and it's hitting Jag, and then Jags does that stupid thing, and I've seen him do this loads of times, that no look sweep the leg.
Pina at Old Trafford.
Well, yeah, but I've seen Jags do it loads of times.
Lazy defending.
I think what you get sometimes, I remember one moment seeing it years ago, nothing to do with Everton, it was with England, but I remember seeing what you get when the situation like that happens with a team like Manchester City coming onto you with the speed they've got, is you start to panic, and then you start panic defending, and panic defending is no good. You know, if you can defend with a little bit of calmness, those defenders are good enough to defend against anybody, you know. But once panic sets in the defence, and I remember seeing, we were in Russia, and I was stood literally behind the goal, and Russia beat us 2-1. It was Arshavin, I think Rooney had scored for us, but then Arshavin scored a goal.
2007.
It must have been, because it might have been 2008, because it was the same.
2007, because I was in Florida and I was watching in a bar.
It was on the AstroTurf, was it that one?
Yeah, you may well be right, I'm not going to argue, but
probably not.
I remember though, Rio Ferdinand and John Terry, I think, were the two central defenders, and I remember for the second goal, the panic in that defence shocked me. You know, I remember being shocked at the way they were panicking. They really didn't know where they were, you know, and I think sometimes defences can suffer from that.
I think that comes with what we've talked about before. It comes with having lots of the opposition players in the, because when that happened, Man City had loads of players in our box, and we couldn't find a way out, and that's what we talked about before, like that Barcelona style of just flooding the opposition and having it happened with their goal as well in the second half. It's having nowhere to go, no out ball.
You don't know where they're coming from.
There's no out ball, and when you've got players like Silva, who's really quick and has got that brilliant movement, and you can't touch him in the box, it is that pure panic.
It just frustrated me, because it did bounce off, can't blame him, Coleman. It did bounce off Coleman. Jags got himself the wrong side, but Williams was behind him. There was no awareness. He was Silva, wasn't it? He was running into a brick wall, because Williams was there, Stekelenburg was there. We had enough cover. Don't hang a leg out, because they're gonna go. Not saying Silva died, but if the leg's there, he hits him, it was a penalty. You go and you're thinking, it was about the 42nd minute or something. We've done, we got to that stage, defending for our lives, and then you give them an opportunity cheaply. But
that's what I say. That's why I think, as you say, we've defended really well up until that point. But once that little bit of panic comes in, I think
everything goes to pot.
And I think it's not Everton. It's any defence it can happen to.
It's classic. It's almost classic last minute of the game thing, isn't it? Where you know,
absolutely.
you throw
and that's why those goals go in.
Last minute, everyone gets bombed forward. Centre back get bombed forward.
How many times do goals go in that last minute? You think, go on. You almost, as a fan, when it's been Everton, you almost expect it to happen, don't you? In the last 5 minutes.
Well, we did for a period on the Moyes, didn't we?
Well, and it does. You know, and that's it. And that is purely down to pressure and panic, and I think that's what happened with the Pens, definitely.
So Kevin De Bruyne steps up, and well, the Dutch dreamboat does it for the first time in the game, and I mean, lots of people criticising the penalty, and both penalties were criticised, but it's always one of them, isn't it? If the keeper dives it the other way, then everyone goes, "What a penalty! What a penalty!" I mean, Unsworth used to do it every time, and he used to just step up, put it in the corner. And you used to think, but if the goalie dived that way, he could have threw his hat on that. That, you know, it was so slow, but he's made a great save, and not only has he made a great save, he pushes it away, he gets it right away. There's no second chances.
No,
that was a brilliant shot, and you know, he's not a bad player to save a penalty from, is he? Because he would have to be back the week they'd be playing us, wouldn't he?
I've not seen enough of the goalkeeper to say, you know, I've only seen highlights in a lot of the games, you know, but is he, you know, was there criticism?
There has been a little bit, and we've done it ourselves. You know, the last couple of games, he's looked a little bit. It looked a bit. I think weak's probably the word, but I don't mean that from a point of view. I just think that at times he's a proper European goalkeeper. He feels like he should have that protection all the time. And strangely enough, I was at the Holland-France game on Monday in the Amsterdam Arena, and it was just a weird. I had an Everton tracky top on, you know, dead proud. Stekenberg's playing. I didn't know where to go when that goal went, because Pogba had the shot, and obviously he should have saved it. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get lynched here, you know. But
he tried to push it out.
You can see people criticising. Oh, look what he's done here. He's not strong enough. We need. And there was a little bit of momentum. And you mentioned before that article in the Echo. People starting to create a little bit of a story. Oh, we should have gone for Joe Hart. But really, when you think about it, he's been brilliant. You know, he's kept for the first 2 or 3 games. He kept us in those games at really important times. Okay, the Middlesbrough game, he's made a bit of a mistake. I mean, it was a foul. It's a foul. The only mistake he's made is he wasn't strong enough. He didn't come out and.
I criticised him, but I thought at Bournemouth he was too far off his line for the goal, and the bent second one, I thought he probably could have done a bit better with the header. But the goalkeeper, it happens, doesn't it? If he makes one mistake in a game,
the other thing is an outfield player gets 3 weeks after doing something wrong. A goalkeeper doesn't. He gets it, that's it. It's the next week. People want him out, don't they? So
I think he's been. I wanted the keeper. I wanted Joe Hart. I'm not going to lie, because I thought he would have been. Just his name and everything, I think, would have made people take notice. But Joe Hart, he makes mistakes every other week.
We've seen it in the last, you know, I don't think Man City let a player like that go without some reason. You know,
no.
So, you know, it can happen, but I think the other thing with the goalkeeper is you've got to give them months. You know, you've got to give them a run in the side. You know, it's never good when you change your goalkeeper quickly. You know, because goalkeepers need to understand the defence, how the defence play. They need to. I mean, he should be. What is it? 9 games now. He will have played 9-10 games. So, you know.
I mean, the defence seemed very happy with him. You know, last season it was a running joke all season. Now, you know, every week we didn't like doing it, but every week we would just look at Tim out and just go, what he. I mean, and to be fair, that was that probably 18 months or 2 years ago. That was my first sign that Roberto, it wasn't going the right way, because he just couldn't see the goalkeeper. And you know, we've been there.
There's a lot of criticism,
but straight away with this fella, I think the defence like him. I think they like the fact that he does come for things. He likes to punch. He's strong. But
he's been great.
He's been pretty much great.
He was bought as a, let's be honest, he come in and everyone was going, well, there's the third keeper, because he's cost £1 million. We've got Joel, and now we're going to get a first choice.
We all thought that, didn't
but he's quickly, you know, for whatever reason, Ronald Koeman didn't get who he wanted, whoever that may have been, and he's come in, he's been absolutely brilliant.
It's a bit naughty as well, getting criticism for something you do playing in international football.
Exactly.
But I think the other thing about him is, though, he's hungry. He wants it. He's got his space back for Holland as well. He hasn't played for 4 years for Holland. You know, and he seems really hungry, like this is his last chance to prove himself in the Premier League as a Premier League goalkeeper. I think people forget how highly rated he was, and he's played in the World Cup final. And I think also, I think we do, as you just said there, our standards are so high for goalkeepers. We've seen the best.
We've had the best.
We've had the best. And to be fair, Nigel Martin's the second best goalkeeper I've ever seen. He was absolutely amazing. But Tim Howard didn't fall that far below them either.
Tim was a great goalkeeper.
For a lot of his, for probably 8 of the 10 years he was here, he was brilliant.
Absolutely.
He'd have the odd moments. I mean,
and then of course, we had the best ever, didn't we? So
that was the thing.
We watched Nev for so long, and Nigel Martin, people who didn't watch Nigel Martin, some of the saves.
That derby match at Anfield, the 0-0.
He was an incredible goalkeeper.
Just ridiculous that day. 7.
Probably goes as far as to say it's David Moyes' best ever signing.
Oh yeah,
I think without a doubt.
More Kale one, but I think
possibly. Absolutely. Kale, yeah.
But there was actually a save yesterday in the Southampton game. Did you see the Heaton save?
I didn't see
very early on,
and
that reminds me of a Nigel Martin save. It was one of them where you just it's in, and you wouldn't even blame the goalkeeper. And next with this hand coming,
not only side of the goal, but it was Pele, wasn't it?
Oh, it was amazing.
It was as good as that.
But it reminded me of Nigel Martin. That's what he used to do all the time.
He's been great, Stefan. I mean, just to clear it up for anyone. Did he criticise him? No, he's been.
So 0-0. We're going to half time 0-0. A little bit relieved, but the second half, I thought we came out really. It was almost like the manager gone, right, he's got through that.
Well, Ron said it, didn't he? Ron's come up and said the half-time team talk was, right, we haven't played very well here, but we're still in this game. Let's go and impose ourselves. And I thought we did second half.
We stepped it up. We started getting a little bit higher. I thought Garner started looking to advance a little bit as well. He'd been a little bit subdued. He started to advance, and everyone started looking a little bit more on it. And as you said, the Delafeu run, great shot, pretty standard save for the keeper, but we just started looking like we were going to get it. But the weird thing was, that's when he made the change. That's when he brought McCarthy on for Delafeu and went for more of a 4-4-2, and thought, well, we'll keep the strength in midfield and we'll be good enough with the two up front.
Well, he just McCarthy went and sat in alongside Barry and Garner, didn't he? Cleverly went to the point of the diamond. I think if you actually look at it, it was a narrow diamond, but he was at the top, and then Balassi is able to get tighter. I mean, he tried Balassi with Rom against Palace, and for the first half it worked quite well at home, didn't it? So that gave them something to think about, and it made Lukaku looked a lot happier having someone quite close to him in that second half, and we drew them on. I mean, the clearance from Jagielka is ridiculous. He's facing his own goal. It's a great ball. Clears it, then Oviedo just flicks it over the toddler's head. Sterling runs like with his arse out, skins him, and then it plays it up, knocks it back. It's a great move.
Yeah, it was.
And then the flick by Balassi is
it's made the goal, hasn't it? I mean, without that, there's no goal, is there? And it's just
horrendous defending by John
Stones. Getting sucked in.
Never get tight like that.
He's running, hasn't he? He's gone there, hasn't he? But as you say, just. I just thought I had to wind it back on the Sky Plus a few times, just to see what he'd done, and I thought that's fantastic, and it makes the goal. But then there's so much to do, Rom's still got so much to do. The finish was just, and I have to say, when he's like that, and you've seen it when he played for West Brom, you've seen it loads of times when he plays for that is his move, isn't it? And I'll tell you, there's no one better in the Premier League.
What I liked about it was he didn't attempt to be cliche early for pace.
No.
He waited. He deliberately waited to get in the box, because he knew once he gets in the box, you can't touch him.
No.
I think too many forwards make the mistake of trying to hit them early with the pace, go flat out, and he just kept them. He just kept them there, and then went past them, and it's a brilliant finish. But it's interesting, because I just wonder, can you see a future in? I mean, we've talked about this a lot, out the striking options. I mean, was Valencia even on the bench?
Yeah.
Was he? Right. I thought he was still on that
card. He got sued the other night.
I know. He's still
after the card.
Does he need someone with him?
Well, I was just thinking, could that be the partnership? Could he turn Balassi into more of a? He's not a number 10, is he?
No, but it's that area, isn't it?
But could he start playing as a second striker? Because he's favoured him in there in the last couple of games, and they have a relationship. They have a relationship on the pitch. They have a relationship off the pitch. There is something there. Lukaku looks He's just happier.
Yeah.
He looks a happier man. He's even said today, I think, something today about he made the right, and you just wonder whether Koeman can turn that into a partnership. It mightn't be the most, natural partnership because everyone sees.
When Balassi came in, people were talking about him on, and I think he's an electric player. When he's on his day, there's not many like him. But I just felt there was a little bit. The thing that worried me when he came in was the inconsistency he has. And it's interesting what you say there, because there might be a position there where it will keep him consistently good. If he did have that role, and I think you might be right. I think it's an area,
because I also think he plays from what we haven't seen loads of him, but the more he's in the game, Balassi, I think the better he is. If he has long spells out of the game,
to go missing,
and when you're a winger, you can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he can do the both roles. I think the beauty of having him with Lukaku is he will do the dirty bits. He'll dive in and throw himself in where you won't get it from Deulofeu. He doesn't want it. Morales wouldn't have jumped for that flick because it meant.
I don't think that as players they would have had the strength.
They wouldn't have seen it.
Deulofeu
wouldn't. He'd have just gone like that and let him clear it. Because I love Thierry, I really do, but he wouldn't have done that. And Balassi will fight for that. I think
he's got strength.
You've got that, but I think the only problem is if we're going to play him at a 2, you've got to try and get some goals around them there, because we're not getting any goals from Ghana. Gareth Barry, I know he scored 2 this season or something, but that's not going to continue. No. McCarthy hasn't got a goal.
All good teams have got to have midfielders.
Well, the other crowd haven't got a centre forward playing. They've got 6 players who score goals.
But just going back to what you said there about the half-time team talk, for me was brilliant. When I read the comments today, and I think you can tell a team by the half-time team talks. And one, Moyes did it fantastically. Moyes could win games sometimes because of his team talk at half time. The amount of times that in the second half they'd come out a different team. But okay, you can always argue, well, they shouldn't have got in that position in the first place. But I think if a team can have a really, what I call, and I bet you went that back to Howard Kendall days and all great teams make things happen at half time if things aren't going well. And I think. I was really pleased to hear about what had gone on at half time today, on Saturday, and I think that's something which would just give us an insight into maybe what might be happening at Everton.
We've seen another game, seen in the Sunderland game, didn't we?
Yeah.
I sit there and I go, we can just get into half time. Koeman will destroy these, or he'll give them what they need,
and I think players respond to that as well. Players want, to be affected, because. There'd be nothing worse than having a terrible first half and going into and there being silence and people start blaming each other. It's not about that. It's about finding out what's wrong and what they can do to put it right. I think one of the really key things today is to hear that what happened at half time, and that excites me, to be honest.
I think you're right, because a lot of managers probably would have gone in and gone, just more of the same, lads. We've got to 0-0. Let's see if we can carry it. Whereas, you'd like to think, and certainly the players coming on and saying, he's gone in and gone, right, we need to tweak this a little bit, because we've done great to get to this point. Now let's get after them and see what's.
But it was brilliant to sub as well, because again, it's funny you talk about Moyes there. Moyes used to do things like that. He used to make subs that people would naturally think were defensive subs. And they didn't. I remember we played Bolton in the cup, and he brought, I can't remember who he brought on, he might have brought Heitinger on, or something like that, or Fellaini. It looked and we scored because it meant that he pushed Fellaini up front. Next minute, we score in the last minute of a game. Sometimes defensive subs, what's he bring? What's he doing? It's not because he's changing the positions. He's and he did that on Saturday, but it looked like a defensive.
But what it shows you is that he's managing, and that's what you want. You want to know that the manager's doing his job on the day, because believe me, there are managers who won't. There are managers who will allow it to just, and as you say, just be pleased. So stay as you are. Don't let's lose this 0-0. And. I think he excites me, Koeman. Ronald Koeman, he really does. He, as a manager, I just think he knows what he wants, and he knows that he's going to get it. I think that's great.
As you say, they brought Aguero on, didn't they? And they started with going for it. And you were talking before about like panic defending. I thought we did all right, but obviously, as soon as I seen Aguero do that little touch into the box, and we were talking about John Stones getting sucked in, Jags. I couldn't believe he fell for that.
No,
I could not believe he fell for it, because you could just see him. He again got too tight into Aguero. Aguero's great in that kind of space, turns so quickly, and Jags is, you know, Jags is almost, you can see his brain going, what have I just done with my foot, as he's doing it.
What annoyed me was, if he'd have been running in on goal and Jagielka's thought, I've got to put a tackle in, or it's 1-1, and I've got that, I'd have gone, alright. He was running across the box into traffic, and the goal's there. Aguero, now unless he does him with a little meg and to be fair, the kick can't, he's outstanding, but
he frightens me just
shrunk.
reading about him. You know what I mean? So I'd hate to actually defend against him, you know.
I just think Jags don't, especially when you've given a pen away already, you're more likely to be like that, aren't you? Don't want to touch him, you know.
And the thing is, you know, I think as a defender, you know, you go anywhere near Aguero. I mean, his sense of gravity is.
He makes me look.
He's he's Maradona, isn't he? You know, he's that sort of player. You know, who just can't. And you go anywhere near him, it's going to happen. You know.
Can't believe that was their 8th penalty they've had this season. But someone messaged me, said they've missed 5 of them.
Yeah, that's right.
I said twice on Saturday.
To be fair, when Aguero stepped up, I was quite confident he'd miss it, because he didn't miss 2 in one game.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
Champions League game. So again, it's not the best of penalties if you analyse it afterwards, but
but I thought he was genius for guessing that way, or he was brave, because he went the same way as the De Bruyne. It would have been easy to go, well, I dived that way before. He's probably thought, he saw me dive that way before, I'm going to go the same way.
No, he's a great. I think when you ever see a goalkeeper who saved 2 penalties in one match, I think you've got to just take your hat off him too, haven't you? You know.
Because he'd already pulled one, he'd flicked one Aguero shot into the top corner, hadn't he? Just before, I think it was just before the penalty, he tipped it wide. And
you know, down the years, and I know this sounds obvious, but to have a goalkeeper who can save a penalty, and there are, if you think back down the years, there've been certain goalkeepers who you know are going to save a penalty.
This is one for the kids,
you know?
goalkeeper.
Yeah, well, exactly.
By size, and it was cap on off penalty.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, if you've got that confidence, you know, you never know. We might win a penalty shootout one of these days.
When it's important,
Well, I mean, 6'6", isn't he? So he probably, I think he said something like, once I pick my side, I'm quite confident if it goes that way, I've got a good chance. So
he was like that money after it. Yeah, you know, it was alright.
Typical Dutch, isn't
big, you know, I'm a big guy, so you've got to be a good penalty.
Smoking a pancake.
But it, you know, makes the save, and then it just annoys me that the goal itself. I know what annoyed me more, and there's a link here out, because you got us in to speak to Martinez, and you started that ball rolling, and the second time we got in to speak to him, I told Martinez to his face, sign Nolito. I said to him, go and sign, because he said, I'm looking for the number 10 who comes off the left, and I said, there's one place for Celta Vigo, Nolito.
He'd already scored the hat-trick against us.
Alright, fair enough.
Are you saying that we would have won on Saturday if you'd have listened to your advice?
I am saying that, and he might be still in a job, even though his job is probably better now. But yeah, it just Nolito pops up, and what makes it worse is that's what makes it worse, is that Nolito pops up, and it's such a basic for us all, the defending we've done and everything. 2 penalty saves. It's a cross and a header, and it's so frustrating when you've got to
give the striker credit in some respects, because he's made the space. He's realised, you know what, I'm because if you look at him, he just steps away. He just steps away from the 2 defenders, and you think. And it's all right for us sitting watching, you know, we're not standing next to him, you know, but it was good movement by the. But you would have thought he should have been picked up.
Well, it was a frantic passage of play. So I think it was Oviedo is on the right.
It's come from a corner, didn't it? Come from a corner, it got headed out, and it got played back wide. But Oviedo done that thing that I always say what our fullbacks do. He kind of jogged out as if he was going to do it, and then stopped, and he let David Silva, who's got a wand, just have a little look round him before. You get out fast, so you close the space down, and then we've got the 2 men, and it is good movement by Nolito. I know exactly what you're saying, but there's 2 centre halves in there who are experienced, Williams and Jagielka, and they allow Gareth Barry to get 2 against 1. He's got no chance. He's got 2 men to mark. Otamendi, isn't it? Otamendi.
Yeah, it was,
And it was a good, I mean, to be fair, it was a good header by Nolito, but you like that, aren't you? Thinking you've got a head, you've saved a penalty.
I would expect that header all the time from him if he's given the space to do it. You know, you would expect him to finish that.
Yeah, he's going to miss that, is he?
Annoying.
Then
Well, he made the save, the two saves. I can't remember when the first one was. That before the goal, the first one where he tips
Aguero,
it. Yeah. So he's done that.
There was one at 0-0 for him in the Etihad when the cross comes in, it deflected and he saves it with his foot. Was a good
so there's that one, and I don't know which one's better, because the one from Aguero with it's literally the fingertips he saves it. But the one from Kevin De Bruyne, oh my God, that's when you know. That's when you know you can play with a pipe. He was having one of those days. No, he was just having one of those days, wasn't he? He was just like
space cakes at the side of the goal the way he moved for that second.
De Bruyne mustn't
even half hit it. But you know what, mate? You know, when I was watching him on Saturday, I was thinking Ross should be watching him. Ross Barkley should be watching him, because he just gets a little yard and he just hits. Barkley's got a shot that, like De Bruyne. He's got that with both feet. He can't half shoot.
No,
just get half a yard and hit it. He doesn't hesitate. Kevin De Bruyne doesn't go, stop, and then I'll get it here. He just pings it. And if you're Barkley sat with the bib on there, you should just be looking at him thinking, that's what I need.
He's a great player. I mean, you know, like I say, the goalkeeper's so important. You know, like, and people underestimate the strength of a good goalkeeper. Every single team in history that have won league titles and cups have had a good goalkeeper. And you know, it sounds obvious, you know, but it would be amazing how many teams don't have one. And that's what loses them games.
Like you were saying before,
it doesn't win them games.
Like you were saying before, it's that relationship, isn't it, of having a good, because it almost comes down to, and it sounds stupid because we give 2 penalties away, but it's almost like, you know, you've got a big goalkeeper there and you've got a striker, and you think, well, I'm going to have to hack him down, but you think, look, we've got a good goalie, he might pull one out here for us. You've got, I think
changes the mentality of a defender.
That's where it was starting to go wrong last year, and when you could see our defenders had no faith left in Tim Howard, and we're starting to clear things on the line where the goalie should be coming out to take it. And
it's that second of thought, isn't it?
Yeah,
which you don't want.
It's gone.
You
have to think.
Thought, you know.
Whereas with this fella, there's a good relationship. He's making great saves, and you can forgive him those mistakes. I think, you know.
You know, I go back to Nev against Tottenham. You know, with Falcao, and you know, and that game, we didn't win that game. Neville made sure we didn't lose, you know, and I think, you know, it's so crucial to have a good goalkeeper in any team. And listen, I don't know whether this guy's the real deal or not. You know, that remains to be seen, doesn't it? But you know,
but if you look, he got us in the end. He got us a point against Spurs. They had 2 great chances. He made them. You know,
West Brom made big saves.
He made a big save. Although was he at fault for the goal? But he made some big saves. West Brom. You know, Sunderland, he done everything he needed to. You know, Palace, okay, I had a little go on him for one of the goals he let in, but then he's coming for crosses and making important saves. He's done it again at the weekend. So already you're talking, 6 or 7 points of our 15.
Exactly.
You go and he's played
make
a big
that over
part.
the season. You see a big difference. You know?
Yeah. Well, we kept it going. They didn't do much after that, did they? That's again. That's
you know what? The biggest compliment. The Guardiola Koeman. He put Vincent Kompany on the front for the last few minutes and just started lumping it. Pep Guardiola, Guardiola'd off by Koeman. That done me. When I seen that, I thought, you'll do for me, because that means you've run out of ideas. When you're putting a centre back and you're launching it.
I never know the last 10 minutes because I'm usually walking around upstairs or somewhere else, not even just listening. You know.
And you know what was great as well? Was the going down like wasting time.
The snideness of it all.
Like, Everton come on back, you know, none of this like ultra professionalism and don't moan at the ref and don't argue. It was great. It takes
a lot to win a game. You know, it takes all kinds to win a game, and I think, you know, we've lost a bit of that over the years. You know, at Everton, you know, when you think back of the you know, the 85, you know, 85, 86, you know, you just think about some of the tricks they used to get up, and they had it all, didn't they? They did it all,
everything.
And you've got to have a bit of it. You know, you don't remember all title winning sides. It's not, maybe Leicester were probably, you know, the exception to the rule, but all title winning sides people don't like for something, you know, and you're not liked if you're a title winning side. Maybe Arsenal in, you know, the Invincibles, you could argue, but other than that, you know, and you want a team, as you say, who will go down at the end and make sure they get the points. You know,
Blackburn Rovers, sorry to bring them up, but I remember them coming down to Goodison beating us 2-1, and they were horrendous. They were wellying the ball into the corner flags with 10 minutes. Shearer and Sutton, they had like Shearer went centre half for the last 10.
You've got to win.
Won the game and won the league a couple of weeks, and that's how you get important points. You dig it out, you kill games. You know, and it's good to see us being able to do it.
But I wanted to mention as well, I thought Ashley Williams was just... If you wanted a reason why Everton bought him,
Yeah.
you know, that was
proper defender.
that was the reason, wasn't it? He was organised all day and winning everything.
Sure.
I saw a great comment on Twitter the other night actually saying that he's the first defender since Waggy, since as a proper out and out centre half, good old school centre half. And I think, I don't know, I'm not so sure David Weir wasn't near that as well for me. David Weir had a thing about him where he just did the right thing at the right time, But I think Williams will become a big player for Everton, even though I don't know what age is he at, I don't know,
32, but
yeah. But I still think,
38,
I still genuinely think there's 2 or 3 years where he will become a massive player for Everton.
Well, the way to look at it as well is who would you rather have had in this game, John Stones or Ashley Williams? Which one would we have needed more? And the answer is Ashley Williams, isn't it? You look at someone like John Stones, or people think what he's going to become, or what he's just become under Guardiola, because suddenly he's become an amazing player under Guardiola. But he just wasn't the type of player we needed. Ashley Williams.
John Stones is a fantastic footballer. I still think he'd be a better defensive midfield player because I think he's really good on the ball. Not so sure 1v1 how good he is, or he doesn't like the aerials, although he won a couple of headers off corners, which he never done for us. But I think Ashley Williams is a proper defender for us.
I think when you talk about John Stones, the first thing you talk about is the way he can play the ball out and all his Barcelona type skills that he's got. You don't talk about him as a defender, do you? And I think that says it all, really. So, and I think those type of players need to be in what I call the finished article. They need to fit into a team which can play that. But I don't think we're there yet. No. And I think people like Ashley Williams will get us there. Eventually.
Great move for Stones. He's at probably the right club he needs to be at, and Williams certainly for us.
And it always makes me laugh because I remember standing for 17 hours outside Finch Farm on a transfer window night, and it was funny because I met the milkman when I got there in the morning.
Do this now?
No,
sorry.
No, not that milkman. And I met the milkman in the morning, and I met him as I was going home later on that day, or that night, or the next day. But I never forget getting a load of stick on the phone on Twitter and everything about saying, "Oh, you've stood there for 17 hours, and all you've done is seen a lad of 16 or 17, whatever it was." And I'll tell you a little story about that night. Was I got a phone call from a guy at Wigan, who will remain nameless. And he says to me, I'd come on.
Did you ever have a broken leg?
No.
Okay.
But I got.
Did he have a Spanish accent?
No. And he said to me, why are you saying that? And I said, why am I saying what? And he said, that Everton are signing John Stones. I said, well, because I've just seen him drive in. So he said, well, he's coming here. So I said, is he? So he says, yeah, we've pretty much signed him, So I said, well, okay, well, you need to worry about it. I said, because he's just gone past me in the car into Finch Farm. And I'll never forget that. And I remember doing a little interview with him in the car as he come out, and he was like a rabbit in the headlights, he was scared kid from Barnsley, And I remember when he went a few weeks ago thinking to myself, if only we knew then that he was going to be worth what he was worth, And it's scary, and I know you'd want more on the transfer window day, don't you, than that, but it was a lesson, I think, for everybody to think, don't ever write things off like that. But Roberto, the manager of Wigan at the time, he thought he had him in the bag, and we stole him. So
there you go.
Let's do that.
No one shoved any purple things in your face either, which is always a bonus.
Definitely not.
Were we supposed to sign the Grado that day?
Yes.
Yeah.
We were, weren't we?
Oh, I had a few.
That's where the anger was coming from. Yeah, that's where the anger.
That's right. He was another one. Yeah, there was a few that right through that day.
Yeah. Definitely.
It all ended.
Oh yeah, see, it all ended well.
With a £50 million defender from Barnsley, and we've got another one. Right,
there you have it. That's the final word. Make sure your comments. What was that? Wasn't purple, was it?
Pretended it to be purple, but I couldn't think of it.
Get your comments in. What's your thoughts on this game? Good point, bad point. Good, bad point. You happy the way we played, or would you like to have seen it be a little bit more adventurous? Tell us in the comments. Thanks for watching Toffee TV. Big thanks for Al coming in. We'll see you later.